good.
How did you come up with the concept of the show?
Okay, well, it's sort of a long story, but I was, hired to do another series after I did Crossing Jordan, and I was looking around at the kind of shows that were on other networks that were working, and I had been starting to get a little bit tired of doing procedural shows that wrap up every week, and was looking forward to doing longer arcing stories that went on a little longer. And so I started thinking about what kind of show I would like to tell that had a longer arc. And I went through all the usual suspects of the cop show and the legal show, and all of this while I was still involved with Crossing Jordan, so I'm just constantly thinking in the back of my mind. And I started thinking about the idea of saving the world and wanting to tell a story about saving the world where ordinary people would save the world. And so I kind of backed into the idea that these ordinary people would then get superpowers in order to do it. And so that's kind of where the idea came from.
What would you say is your favourite character from the show and why?
Well, that's a really dangerous question to ask me because I have to go back and see all these actors who play these parts. And so for me to sort of say who's my favorite would get me in a little bit of trouble. On any given day, many of them are my favorites. And then on other days when we have troubles with them, either writing that with them or with scenes that they're doing, then none of them are my favorite. So, the original characters, the big sort of archetypal characters, are still really fun for me to deal with. I still like the bad guys and a villain like Sylar, and I still am very intrigued by Hiro Nakamura's ability to be enthusiastic and. The goal now for us is to constantly breathe new life into these characters and to keep coming back to those. Yes, keep coming back to those reasons why people sort of fell in love with them.
Okay. If you could bring back any of the characters that you've killed off, which one would it be, or would you?
That's a tough one. There have been characters that left the show. There have been characters that left the show for other reasons, like Christopher Eccleston, who we would love to be able to work with again, but he's always so busy. I guess I would say the same thing about Kristen Bell. We only had a narrow window with her before she went off to do a feature, and we very reluctantly said goodbye to her by killing her character off. It always becomes a question as to whether you keep it open-ended in order to have a character come back. But the truth is, you do get a lot by killing characters. First of all, it tells the audience that the stakes are high, so that when you put characters in jeopardy, people will believe that there's actual ramifications or risks to them, And if you never kill anybody off, then the audience begins to think that the danger that these characters are in is never going to be real. So unfortunately, then people like Kristen Bell, who we all loved having around, we have to kill off, and we haven't come up with a clever way of bringing her back. So.
Yet. If you could have anyone guest star on the show in the whole world, who would it be?
Oh, God, that's, Meryl Streep. How about that? Robert De Niro.
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt, sure. The truth is we try not to be a show that has a lot of big-name guest stars, just because they're hard to schedule, and we're doing a show in a very tight schedule, and so you need to have people who are genuinely available, and it's just not a show that, because we have to plan so far in advance, it's not a show that can just, when somebody's available, bring them on. And in some ways, the story has been the star of our show, and you try and get these big cliffhangers and big twists and turns to really mean something. And one of the other things is that the show was always about ordinary people, and it was why I didn't want to cast initially anybody who was that recognizable. I didn't want you to. I wanted the audience to have a kind of transparency between themselves and the characters, so that they weren't saying, "Oh, that's the guy from Will and Grace. I know him," or "That's the guy from that movie that I love." I wanted them to have a completely open sort of relationship with these people. So sometimes bringing a really famous face onto the show kind of flies in the face of what the show is about.
Okay. What's your favourite TV show currently airing, apart from Heroes?
Well, to believe it or not, I kind of like this show Project Runway. I don't know whether you know. Just because I can watch it with my my family. And one of the real drawbacks of making television is that you don't have a lot of time to watch television. And so what ends up happening is you get kind of far away from what the trends are because you find you hear people talking about TV shows all the time that you haven't seen, and you start to wonder whether you're missing out on some sort of big sort of zeitgeist trends of where the audience is going. And then other times I think that maybe that's a good thing, that I won't fall back on trying to be repetitive of what's happening, what's working out there.
Okay. Is there any TV show that you wish you would have written?
Oh, things like The Sopranos, I really admire the writing in that, and that have that very singular voice that steeped in research, and The Wire, shows like that. Genuinely admire that kind of writing.
Mm-hmm. Most superheroes receive a power connected to their personality. If you had a superpower, what do you think yours would be?
That's a really good question. Nobody's ever asked me that question based on my personality. It would probably be invisibility, because I do like to be sort of an observer. I like to. I think it's part of what has made me a writer, is that I'm sort of observer of people and human nature, and so I think invisibility would be something that would be kind of handy for me. Yeah.
If you had to put one of the characters from Heroes up against Superman in a fight to the death, who would it be, why, and who would win?
Well, to the death, that'd be tough, because I'm not sure how you kill Superman other than kryptonite. And I guess I guess the most powerful would probably be Hiro Nakamura, because he would be very hard to get hold of, as he teleported around and jumped around. And I guess he could theoretically teleport up to the planet Kryptonite and get some kryptonite and bring it back. So, with very little thought, that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay. Will Heroes' origins ever see the light of day?
I hope so. It was really the very first casualty of the writer's strike. As soon as the writer's strike hit, Origins, which was meant to extend the second season by 6 episodes, that was the first casualty. Everybody knew that we weren't going to do that, and so they cut the budget completely off for it. And then, because we were 9 months before we returned to the air, it became then so important to relaunch the show with the audience that we put it on the back burner. And then the third season, we ended up doing 25 episodes, which took us 15 months to produce. And so we just didn't have time to even think about it. And now we're into the 4th season. So it just keeps getting, in a way, sort of kicked down that can keeps getting kicked down the road a little bit. So at this point, we have no plans, but I would love to, because that's still an idea that really is intriguing to me.
And would you ever consider making a Heroes movie?
Yes, but I think it's always sort of dangerous to think about a movie while a television show is on. I think they sort of rob from one another in a way. So I think it would be something, yes, to explore. If the audience seems to be interested, a show has to still, or an idea has to still have enough life in it for people to want it. So hopefully we will leave gracefully from as a TV show and still allow enough life in it so that people will want to see a movie.
Okay, that was my last question, but can I just ask, can you give a shout out to play.com?
Hey, everybody at play.com. I hope you keep watching the show. Thanks.
Thanks.
All these powers, it's gonna destroy everything.
You want to live? Get in.
Good will battle evil. Heroes Season 3 on DVD and Blu-ray 12th October.